Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to have this opportunity to share a little bit about my background, but also an incredibly powerful tool that can actually help you transform your life. So, tonight, what I'll be doing is I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I'll talk about the subconscious, I'll talk about our belief systems, how they are created. And then what we'll do is go through and actually do a meditation where we go up into a theta brainwave. We'll actually go through and teach some feelings for yourself as well. So you get a little bit of that practical work. And we'll also do a manifestation tonight. So to get started, my name is Mark Anthony, and I'm actually an engineer by profession. I had a business in the construction industry 18 years ago. Who believes in preventative maintenance. He did a manipulation on me, and I heard the bones click into place. I go home, an hour later, I feel this pain across my back. So I went back to see him the next day and got him to fix whatever he'd done, and it didn't improve. So I actually went back to see him again. So I went back to see him a third time, and it didn't improve. So I went to see the doctors. So I go see the doctors. The doctors send me for a bone scan. And what that is, they inject the dye into your bloodstream and they put you through a CT scanner, and it shows up if there's any fractures. And they found there was a fracture on my left rib, 2 fractures on my right rib, and a fracture on the vertebrae. So the doctor said to me, 6 to 8 weeks, you'll be better. All you got to do is go home and rest. And so I went home and rested. And after 6 weeks, I wasn't getting better. After 8 weeks, I wasn't getting any better. And so I went back to see the doctors, and it got to the point where I was just in constant pain. So I go to see the doctor's there, and he ends up referring me to a back specialist. I go to see the back specialist. He sends me for an X-ray and an MRI scan. And I go for this X-ray, and the radiographer comes out of the room and he sits about 5 meters away from me. And he says to me, he said, it's totally up to you. He said, you can go and see your local doctor tomorrow, but he's going to do exactly the same thing for you. He said, I've rung the hospital and told them that you're on your way. He said, there's an infection inside your vertebrae. He said, it looks like you've got TB. So the positive out of that for me was I had no idea what TB was. But he seemed really serious. So I thought, okay, well, I better go to hospital. So I go to hospital. They put a face mask on me. They make me sit away from everybody else. And that's when I started to think, well, this may be a little bit serious. And what happens is they take me in, they do the test for tuberculosis. And it's actually a really simple test. They just inject you. And if your body reacts to it, then it shows that you've got TB. But I didn't have TB, tuberculosis. So the next process was to identify what I actually had. So they did what they call a fine needle biopsy. And the fine needle biopsy, if you ever go to hospital and they tell you we're going to give you a big needle biopsy, I would run, right? Because the fine needle is 30 centimeters long and it's about 5 millimeters thick. So in my case, because the infection was in my vertebrae, they put me in the CT scanner and they kept pushing this needle into my back until they got to where the infection was, and it's hollow on the inside. And so they can actually draw out part of that infection. They put that infection into a controlled environment. The infection grows. And once the infection grows, then they're able to identify what the infection is. They can give you the antibiotics for it, and happy days. But unfortunately for me, nothing grew. So they didn't know what the infection was. So they decided to do another biopsy where they will put 3 holes in my side, put a camera in there, take a sample of the infection. And they said that worst case scenario, if they had to cut me open, it was going to be a 2 centimeter cut. So I signed my life away. I go in for this procedure. And when I come out of this procedure, I've got 2 tubes coming out my side, draining the blood and everything else because I had to collapse the lung in order to do the procedure. And I've got a button for morphine, right? So I don't know about you guys, if you've been in hospital, you've experienced morphine, but morphine has to be one of the most horrible energies that you can experience. We're talking energy work here. The morphine has the consciousness of, I don't care if I live or die, right? That's a consciousness of morphine. So for me, it was a really horrendous energy. But I've got a button for morphine and I've got a scar across my back that's 20 centimeters long. So worst case scenario was 2 centimeters. I've got a 20 centimeter cut. And for those of you in the medical industry, the procedure that they actually did for me is called an open thoracoscopy. So it's actually major surgery. And that was for a biopsy. So what they do is they cut through the back. So they cut in line with the ribs and they push the meat apart and then they push the ribs apart and they get inside and took a sample of the infection. So a few days later, the doctors come back to see me and say, Mark, the good news is you don't have cancer. Right? Now, that was a shock because I had no idea they were looking for cancer. Right? Culturally, I have a Lebanese background, and culturally, like, cancer is like a death sentence. So, like, culturally, we can have belief systems from different cultures that things are actually a lot worse than other cultures. And it's been, you know, documented with healing modalities, with certain people from different cultures will actually heal a lot quicker. But when I was in hospital, one of my cousins came to visit me and he said to me, it's not the C word, is it? Like, he couldn't even say cancer, like there's that much unconscious fear around it. Right? So that was a shock. He said, but the bad news is we didn't take enough sample to test for anything else. So they wanted to repeat the procedure 7 days later. So at the time, I had orthopedic surgeons, I had cardiothoracic surgeons, I had neurosurgeons and infectious diseases doctors taking care of me. And all of them were absolutely amazing. And I said to them, I said, well, if you're going to go back in 7 days' time, make sure all 4 of you are there so you get enough sample for everybody, because there wasn't going to be a third crack at it. And so luckily for me, while I was in hospital, I ended up getting a fever. The Australian medical system, if you have a fever in hospital, they have to treat you. They have to give you some sort of antibiotics. So this is how the infectious diseases doctor drew out my condition. So that was T6, that's the disc, and that's T7. So they're basically the vertebrae in between your shoulder blades. Right? So there was deformity of T6, damage to the disc, and partial collapse of T7. The infection levels in my blood were 125. Normal levels are 0 to 15. So the infection levels were really high. So what happens is the doctor says to me, we're going to put you on a really high dosage antibiotic. It's a 6-week treatment. At the end of the 6 weeks, the infection will be gone, and then it will take about 12 months for the bones to regenerate. Not to completely heal, but just to regenerate. I was happy with that, right? I was brought up in a family that was very much religious. So like going to church every Sunday, and very conventional. Like, you know, we believed in the medical industry. You know, whenever we got sick, we'd go straight in the car, go down to the doctors. The doctors would give us that magic pill, and it was happy days after that. So the doctors said to me, the condition that I have is called vertebral osteomyelitis. Osteomyelitis is a bone infection, and vertebral because it was in the vertebrae. So I jump online and I have a look, and it says one of the first things that I see is if it's not treated, it's fatal, right? Not a problem though, because my faith is in the medical industry. So I go through this 6-week treatment, and at the end of the 6 weeks, we do another blood test, and the infection levels in my blood are still 125. So all of a sudden, that's where things start to get a little scary, right? Because the infection levels hadn't shifted. If it's not treated, it's fatal. All of a sudden, there's some fear happening. So what the doctors decide to do is give me another fine needle biopsy. And those of you that are here, this is the actual tool that they used to push the needle into my back. Okay. So I don't know if you can see, there's an opening in there, and you can see that it's actually hollow. And you guys can have a look at it here later, but this is the tool. So the guy that actually did the fine needle biopsy for me, he was an Asian guy, and he was an absolute legend. We like just really connected, and it was just amazing. Like, it was just really cool. Like, it was because you're awake when they're doing this procedure. So he was talking to me the whole time, right? And we were joking and stuff. So he gave me this as a souvenir. And but we go through this fine needle biopsy. He takes the sample of the infection. They put it in a controlled environment, and nothing grows. So the doctors are at a loss. And basically what it got down to was the infectious diseases doctor said to me, he said, look, Mark, he said, there's nothing more that we can really do for you. He said, you need to hope for the best. Now, if there's something that you don't want to hear from the doctors, that's it. For the doctors to turn around and say, there's nothing more we can do for you, it was devastating, because all my faith was in the medical industry. Like, I always relied on the medical industry. They were always there for us. And now they couldn't help. So what happens is they decided to put me back on the same high dosage antibiotic that didn't work. And they gave me another really high dosage antibiotic. And so I said to them, well, you know what? If I'm going to die, I'd rather die at home. And so I forced them to discharge me. And before you are discharged, you've got to go and see all the specialists that are taking care of you. And the neurosurgeon says to me, Mark, you need to understand your situation. If you pick up a shopping bag, it'll collapse your spine. That's not something you want to hear. Like, when you've been active your whole life, like in the construction industry, I've played, contact sports, rugby league all my life. And all of a sudden, I can't pick up a shopping bag because it'll collapse my spine. My daughter is 2 years old. I can't pick up my daughter. And it was devastating. It was devastating. So I go home, and I went to see my naturopath. My naturopath, really funny story, actually, because I'm blessed. Teresa, that you guys here met out the front, and you can see her online there. She's my wife. She's the one who introduced me to spirituality. We met at the age of 21. She was an absolute weirdo because she was all into all this spiritual stuff. And I told her, you're a weirdo. And she said, well, if you don't like it, see you later. And I thought, well, she's a nice girl. Maybe I should have a look at what she's doing. And that was my introduction to spirituality. We actually did a course together. And one of the first things they spoke about was gut feelings. And that's when the light bulb came on for me, because I had experienced that. I never knew where those gut feelings came from or how they got there, but I just knew to trust them. And then these people are saying that you can actually fine tune your abilities so you can actually use that on a daily basis. So I had to understand how that works. And that's where I began studying spirituality. But so what happens is 11 years later, I'm in this position. So what happens is I go in there, I go home, I go see my naturopath. My naturopath gives me some vitamins, but she also gives me this book. And it says Go Up and Work with God by Vienna Steibel. And it's like, from a book perspective, it's probably as dodgy a book as you can get. Right? Didn't look very professional at all. The punctuation was terrible. But I took this book home. And that night, it was Sunday night, I went home and I started reading this book. Honestly, I just got through the preface. And I just had that feeling inside, whatever this is it. I just knew this was the answer for me. So I look up Vienna Steibel, I find her website. I didn't find anybody in Australia, but I did find her Yahoo group. So it shows you how long ago it was. So I joined her Yahoo group. And the next morning I received all these messages from this Yahoo group, and there's a person in Australia. So that's Monday morning. I ring this guy up. He doesn't answer the phone. Tuesday, he rings me back. We booked a one-on-one session for the Thursday, and I booked in for the basic and the advanced classes a week apart. So Thursday was a consultation. Friday, Saturday, Sunday was the first class. The second class was the following Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now you got to remember, I'm half dead, right? But I just knew this was the answer for me. I wasn't hoping this was going to work. I just knew this was it. And so I go for that first consultation. And it was really funny because the issues that I have were all in the back. And he said to me, he said, well, do you have any support issues happening? And I said, well, not really. I think, my family's pretty supportive. I said to him, my dad did die when I was 16. And he said, okay. And then the infection. So infections, generally, you're looking at worthiness, guilt, and resentment. And he says to me, is there any resentment towards your father? And I thought, well, no, not a chance. And we got in a little bit deeper, and all of a sudden we identify that I had this unconscious resentment towards my father. So here's how it works. My dad was amazing. He was a great man. I can't complain about, my upbringing. My dad was awesome. 16 years old, I go to school in the morning. My next door neighbor picks me up. He's got a done-up Tirana. So we go driving around, doing hero laps around the area. And about an hour later, it's like, what's going on? Just take me home. And so he finally takes me home, and there's cars everywhere. So I run up to the top of the stairs, and there's a friend of the family there, and he grabs me and he says, Mark, you've got to be strong for your mother. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And so I go inside, and there's relatives everywhere. Like I said, Lebanese, like, we got a lot of relatives. Like, my mum had, I think, 10 or 11 siblings or something like that. And, not all of them are here in Australia. But, my dad had 5 siblings. So big families, right? And second cousins, third cousins, like, huge. The house is full. And mum's sitting there and she's bawling her eyes out. Dad's body is outside. He mowed the lawn, walked into the backyard, had a heart attack, and by the time he hit the ground, he was dead. That was it. Like, no warning, no nothing. Like, it was just, and one day our whole life was turned around, right? But I used to always tell people that there was so much more he had to teach me. That's a harmless statement. But if he had to teach me more and he didn't, then he let me down. And that created an unconscious resentment towards my father. So all of a sudden, I've created this infection inside my vertebrae. And that day when we healed the emotional blocks around that resentment, half the pain in my back disappeared. And I pray you never ever experience bone pain, but bone pain is the worst pain. Right? Half the pain in my back disappeared. I would get about an hour's sleep at night with a heat pack in between my shoulder blades. It was terrible. So then the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I take the first class. My daughter comes running up to me. Teresa and my daughter come to pick me up. My daughter comes running up to me, Daddy, carry me. Teresa is freaking out, like, no, he can't, like, it'll collapse his spine. But I felt amazing. I felt amazing. And I picked up my daughter and I never looked back from that day. So I was able to transform my physical body. I was able to transform my life. And that is all because I changed my way of thinking. And that's what it comes down to, because I had a perception of my reality that was creating my physical circumstances. That was my truth unconsciously. And when I changed that truth unconsciously, it allowed the environment for my body to heal itself. And that's what happens. Your body does heal itself. Your body is incredible. If you give your body the right environment, mentally, emotionally, physically, your body heals itself. Your body is amazing. And that's what we're looking to do here, is give that right environment to allow your body to heal. So I went back to see the infectious diseases doctor. He gave me another blood test. And the infection levels in my blood went from 125 down to 2. Not bad. And then I asked him for an MRI scan, and he said to me, Mark, he said, listen, he goes, we all know what's there. An MRI scan is a waste of money. He said, if you really want, I can send you for a back x-ray. So I go for the back x-ray. T6 is perfect. The disc is perfect. T7 has got a slight jagged edge on the top of it, just like that. And so I said to him, I said, well, is that good? And he said, well, it's amazing. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, normally when somebody's had what you have, they come back and the whole vertebrae is gone. So I was able to transform my physical body. And the thing is, it's not because I'm special. It's because I had faith that whatever this was going to heal me. And that's what it comes down to. The power of your mind is incredible. So from that point, Vienna was coming to Australia to teach the instructors training, like about a month after I had my healing. And I just went there to meet the lady who gave me my life back. And I remember sitting in that instructor class, and Vienna's like, 80% of you will go on and teach this work. You have no idea how relieved I was. I remember sitting there thinking, thank God I'm in the 20%. Because I never had any intention of being a healer or doing any of this sort of work. My idea was I was going to go back into engineering or go back into construction. But everything I did relating to engineering or construction, these doors would close in front of me. Everything I did relating to this work, it was like the red carpet was rolled out in front of me. And I'd like to say that, like I instantly was able to pick that up and take that on, but it took a while for me to accept that, okay, well, beating your head against these doors is not really getting you there. So you're going to have to change and recognize that this is the direction that you're meant to be going. And so in 2009, I became Vienna's host. So I had actually hosted her for instructor classes here in Australia. And I became the publisher for books at that time as well. Since then, she's signed an agreement with Hay House, who are now Penguin. So Hay House publish all her books. So don't worry about the punctuation. It's all sorted now. It's actually a really good book to read, right? But her books are really amazing. So she's a Hay House author. And In 2013, I created a class of my own called Wealth Consciousness. And that is a class that I've had approved as a Theta Healing elective. And I travel all over the world teaching that class to people. So basically, my life has gone in a direction that I never, ever would have imagined. And it's been an absolute blessing. And the person that I have to thank for it is that chiropractor, right? Because, and I really want to make this clear because this is important, but chiropractors are amazing. I've got a lot of friends who are chiropractors and they're actually really good. But this guy, the way he was operating like a body shop. He would have 3 or 4 rooms going at the same time, and he's just going in from one room to the other. And the care factor just wasn't there. Whereas I know some amazing chiropractors, and I'll still go and see them today. But this guy was a perfect manifestation on my part, right? Because everything that happens to us on a physical level has an emotional cause. So I already mentioned like the support issues, right? Even though, you know, Teresa, my mom, my siblings, my family are so supportive, because I was missing my father's support, I convinced myself I was unsupported. And that's why the issues happened in the back. The resentment towards my dad, which I never, ever imagined was even there. We released that issue. And one of the key things, because broken bones from an emotional perspective relate to connection to God. And this was a really interesting one for me because I remember sitting in my hospital bed and Teresa was there. And honestly, I was in tears. I was in tears because I didn't know if I was going to live or die. And I remember saying to her, I'm praying to get better. But who am I praying to? Am I praying to Jesus and Mary, like, you know, from my upbringing, from my religious faith? Or am I praying to this God of spirituality? Like, who am I praying to? And that's where the connection to God issues were. Because I created in my mind that either I was Catholic or I was spiritual. It was one or the other. It was like there was a separation there. It wasn't until I found Theta Healing that I realized that it's all part of the whole. Everything is part of the whole. We are one with all that is. And if you look at science today, if you look at quantum physics, the study of energy, if you take your body, if you take this lectern down to the smallest particle, oh, sorry, you guys can't see. If you take the chair that you're sitting on down to the smallest particle, it is a moving energy, and that energy is often called quanta. If you take your physical body down to the smallest particle, that energy is often called quanta. The energy that makes up everything outside of you is the same energy that makes up everything inside of you. So if we are all one energy, then we are one with all that is. God, creator, collective consciousness, source, whatever term you use for it is irrelevant. As long as you believe that there is some sort of greater power out there, some sort of greater consciousness, then this will work for you. And that's all it comes down to. So I remember having a conversation with Bruce Lipton one day, The Biology of Belief. This guy's amazing. He's a cell biologist and his work is incredible. And I remember having a chat with him one day and I said to him, I can't remember what we're discussing, but he said to me, he said, look, Mark, he said, as a scientist, he said, my one objective was to prove that God did not exist. He said, the deeper I got into my studies into cell biology, he said, I came to the conclusion that you cannot deny that there is some sort of collective consciousness. Right? That was really profound. Like, you know, coming from somebody like Bruce Lipton, like he's amazing. Like he's a pioneer of this sort of work. He's incredible in understanding how belief systems work. So basically everything that makes up the energy outside of us is all part of that one energy. And my big disconnection was understanding who I was actually praying to. Like I had that separation when it came to spirituality. And when I was able to shift that, all of a sudden I was able to heal my body, because to have that level of damage done by a chiropractor is rare. It's not like a common thing where you have that level of damage done, right? Broken vertebrae and 2 ribs, like 4 fractures, that's huge. So I had major issues with God. And when I cleared those issues with God, all of a sudden it all changed. And so basically, here's how it works. Whatever you've got going on in your life right now, they are your conditions and your circumstances. To you, they are true. Whatever you're experiencing right now, whatever limitations, the areas that you're experiencing lack, the areas that you're experiencing abundance, that is your truth right now. And the reason why that is your truth right now is because that is your subconscious belief systems being fulfilled. See, what it is your subconscious mind is the one that puts the rules that govern your life out into the environment. And whatever matches those rules is what you experience. So here's how it works. We have our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. So the conscious mind operates at as little as 40 bits per second, and the subconscious mind operates at up to 40 million bits per second. So the subconscious mind is like the supercomputer of supercomputers. So there have been times where you've opened a book and your attention is drawn to something here on the page. And then you're reading it and you're trying to see what was it that got my attention there. The reason why that happens is because your subconscious works so quickly. By the time you open that book, your subconscious has already read those pages. It knows your value systems. It knows what's important to you. And so it directs your attention to this part of the page. But because the conscious mind works so slowly, it is playing catch up, trying to figure out what it was that your subconscious saw. So here's where it starts to get really interesting. Up to 95% of the time, your subconscious mind is in control of your life. So that means as little as 5% of the time, the conscious mind is in control. So the conscious mind is a logical, rational mind. So you observe all the information that is in front of you, and you make a logical and rational choice. But as little as 5% of the time, you're using that part of your mind to make the decision. So let me explain to you how it works. I like to use the analogy of a filing cabinet. So let's say your subconscious mind is like a filing cabinet. Here's something really important. The conscious mind does not create subconscious beliefs. The conscious cannot create a subconscious belief. It can only impress on the subconscious. And through repetition, that impression can become a belief system. And that's where it's really important to understand, because whatever issues you've got going on in your life, it's not a one-off. There is some sort of pattern that you are experiencing. So if, for example, if I've got relationship issues and let's say, for example, I'm feeling unsupported by my wife, right? So if I'm feeling unsupported by by my wife today, then what I do is I can go into those feelings and I can recognize when I've experienced that feeling before. And that feeling is going to go back to, maybe when I was at school. Maybe I was in the class and my friends, instead of sticking up for me, they turned their back on me. So I felt unsupported. Maybe when I was a child, my mum was taking care of my siblings and I felt unsupported because no one was there for me. There's always some sort of pattern, right? So let's say little Johnny's at school and Johnny's 5 years old. And throughout his life, he's had experiences where he's been told that he's too slow. His parents are telling him to hurry up, you're too slow. So when he was 6 months old, when he's a year old, when he's 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, you're too slow, Johnny, hurry up. So now Johnny's had like this repetition of being too slow. He's at school. He's in this environment where he feels insecure. He's at school, like he's not really happy to be at school. He has to be there though. So all of a sudden, the teacher has a look at what Johnny's doing and says, Johnny, you're too slow. Johnny's feeling really insecure. He hears the words too slow and he thinks, I'm dumb, I'm stupid. So now what happens is because he's had repetition of too slow, because that is familiar, all of a sudden, the subconscious locks it in. Too slow, and it becomes a belief system. So now 20 years later, Johnny's at work. His boss walks into the room, has a look at what he's doing. Johnny, you're too slow. His subconscious mind scans the filing cabinet, finds the file too slow. I'm dumb, I'm stupid. So what does Johnny do? He reacts. He reacts to his boss, does or says something that he's going to regret. So basically what's happened is Johnny has reacted based on the misperception of a 5-year-old. So if we were able to do a healing on Johnny and we were able to change this subconscious belief, so basically reprogramming his subconscious mind. His boss walks in, has a look at what he's doing. Johnny, you're too slow. The subconscious scans the filing cabinet. There's nothing there. So now his conscious, logical, and rational mind can take over. So Johnny turns to his boss and says, I took a longer lunch today. I'll work back this afternoon. Or maybe he says, I'm not feeling well today. Can you give me a hand? But you see the difference. When there is a subconscious belief system there, we have no control over how we deal with this situation. And more often than not, it is a negative reaction. Have you ever noticed the people that you react to the most are the people that you're closest to? And that's because you have the most files with those people. You have the most repetition with those people. And so a lot of our belief systems are created from repetition. So if we've got a sibling who always jokes with us, but always puts us down, then on an unconscious level, we can actually take that on as a belief system. And to show you the power of belief systems, there was a study that was done inside a prison. And Malcolm Gladwell talks about it in one of his books. He's got a number of books. Blink is one of them. Outliers is another one. They're actually really good books. But he talks about this example. And they took a picture of a really busy street. So there was people everywhere in this picture. And they took it to the prison and they showed it to 50 murderers and rapists. And they said to them, out of this picture, which one person would you attack? And 49 out of 50 picked exactly the same person. So basically what that means is that person in that picture has a belief system that they're sending out to the universe saying that they're a victim. Those perpetrators in the prison have got a belief system that they're sending out into the universe saying that they're a victim. They need a victim. And that's why when they look at the picture, it's like there's a big red circle around that person's face. Whatever we are experiencing in our lives is a direct result of the belief systems that we're sending out into the universe, right? Another one of my favorite books is called The Wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn. This is a really cool book. So she actually wrote 4 books, and all 4 books are inside this one. Her most famous book is called The Game of Life and How to Play, right? But she uses the example. She says, you have a person who goes out the front of the building. And as soon as they get out the front of the building, a taxi arrives. You have another person, as soon as they walk out the front of the building, the taxi's just driving off. So each one of them has their own truth. One of them, they always get the taxi. The other one, they never get the taxi. So what happens is we're creating our own truths, our own unconscious truths. And those rules determine our lives. They dictate the experiences that we have. So whether it's health, relationships, finances, whatever it may be, whatever you're experiencing in your life right now is a product of the belief systems that you have. See, when we're born, our brain is not born developed. The first 6 years of our lives, the frontal lobe of our brain is being formed. And a lot of our unconscious belief systems are actually formed in that area. So what happens is as the baby's brain develops, there are neural pathways. And so what's happening is it's sending messages, and there's the option where it can go this way, this neural pathway, that neural pathway, or this one. And what happens is it's testing things. So if this neural pathway gets used and it's a positive outcome, then this one's going to start getting used again. If this one gets used once and it's a negative outcome, then it's going to stop sending messages that way. And it's going to come back to sending messages this way. So what happens is this neural pathway gets trimmed off. And the one that's getting the most work, the body creates a protective shield around that neural pathway. The brain is constantly trimming off old neural pathways and creating new neural pathways. But in the first 6 years of our lives, that's when the majority are being created, right? So the frontal lobe of your brain is formed roughly by around the age of 21 and around 23 in males. So, but the first 6 years of our lives is when the bulk comes in. So in my wealth consciousness class, I ask people, what was your parents' relationship with money? When you're in the first 6 years of your life, what was your parents' relationship with money? And I guarantee you can probably trace back your relationship to money to theirs. We copy unconsciously their relationship with money and experience that in our own lives. But if you look at relationships, how many times have you heard people say, I'd never marry somebody like my mother or like my father, and they end up with someone exactly like them? You want to know why that is? It's because what happens is they meet somebody who's not like their mother or father, and they get hurt. And it's painful. And then they meet somebody else who's not like their mother or father, and they get hurt again. And so the subconscious does everything it can to avoid pain. So what happens is it thinks, okay, well, you know what? My mother or my father was not ideal, but we survived it. Right? If you look at genetically, go back a few generations, their one objective in life was survival. They didn't have like these ambitions of owning, a multi-story building in, St. Leonard's or whatever it is. They didn't have these ambitions of, buying a Ferrari. That sort of stuff didn't exist. If they left the cave, they went hunting, they gathered some food, and they got back to the cave, that was a successful day. So genetically, a lot of our programming is all about just surviving. And so if we survived our parents' relationship, if they survived their relationship, then what's going to happen is the subconscious is going to think, okay, well, you know what, that's going to be less painful because we know what we're aware of. We know what to expect. We've been through that before. Can you see how it works? A lot of what you're experiencing in your life today is not because you're a victim. It is because you've been programmed unconsciously. And so if we can start to reprogram and change our perception of things, then all of a sudden we can create what we actually desire. Because if we look at the laws that govern the universe, right, and there are immutable laws that govern the universe. So the first one is the law of unity. So the law of unity states that you are one with all that is. You are one with the energy of creation. The law of faith states that anything that you have absolute faith in, you will experience. If you have absolute faith that it's yours, you will experience it. And the way that that works is through the law of cause and effect. That's the prime law of the universe. The law of cause and effect states that if I hurt another person, somebody's going to hurt me. That's how cause and effect works. So if I hurt another person, I'm actually hurting myself. So why am I going to hurt myself? But if I have faith that whatever it is that I'm manifesting is actually mine, if I have that focus that I know it's absolutely mine, then the law of cause and effect is going to bring it into being because I'm sending an energy out into the universe saying, hey, this is already mine. And the effect is going to be receiving it. And then one of the laws that's really familiar for most people is the law of attraction. So if we are energetic beings, if we are one with the energy of creation, then right now we are vibrating at a particular frequency. So if we're energetic beings, then our vibration is at this level. So whatever your circumstances are at this moment, your health, your relationships, your finances, all the different areas of your life, whatever is in the same frequency of your energy is what you are going to experience. That's how it works, because cause and effect and a law of attraction. Whatever is at the same level that you're at is what you're going to magnetize to yourself. That's how it works. So if we manifest something and we can raise our vibration instantly to that level, then we'd be able to manifest it instantly. It's that simple. If we can raise our vibration to that frequency, then we can experience whatever we desire in an instant. And you've seen it your whole life. So whether it's you're feeling flu, you go to the doctors, you get that magic pill, and all of a sudden it disappears. Whether, you feel yourself getting the flu and think, oh no, I've got that party this weekend, I don't have time to get sick. And somehow it disappears. You've shifted your frequency, you've changed your vibration. That parking spot out the front, you manifest it. Even bending time. You've all experienced bending time. You're sitting with somebody that you love. You're with that person for 2 hours, it feels like 5 minutes. Sit with somebody that you don't like. You're with that person for 5 minutes, it feels like 2 hours. We've had these experiences throughout our lives where we've been able to shift our awareness to that state and experience what it is, right? But if it's something that you've done before, it's easier to do, right? So my state of being right now, let's say, is I'm thirsty, right? So if I want a drink of water, I'm in a state of wanting. Nothing's happening, is it? As long as I'm in a state of wanting, nothing's going to happen. In order for me to experience water, I need to change my state. So now I'm taking action and I'm in a state of getting. But I knew exactly what it was that I desired, right? I wasn't thinking maybe it's water. I was certain. I had faith that it was water. And because I've done this many times in my life, there was zero doubt that I could experience it. And that's how it works. But what if it's something that you've never experienced before? How do you shift your state from wanting to getting, to experiencing? And that's the big question. Because here's how it works. We have belief systems that block us. And the first level that our belief systems are stored on is called the core level. And that's in the frontal lobe of our brain. So I mentioned earlier that the first 6 years is when the majority of our core level is formed. It doesn't fully form until around the age of 21 or around 23 in males. But everything from the point of conception all the way through to now is what you've taken on the core level. So it's like there's a timeline that begins. And so the point of conception, not when you're born, while you're in the womb, we actually start taking on information from the environment. We start taking on our mother's fears and a lot of the issues that are going on outside of us. Right? So from the point of conception through to now, we're taking on those belief systems. But here's something that's really important is on the core level, I mentioned that the first 6 years of our lives are really important. There are 5 different brain states that you go in and out of on a daily basis, right? So the first brainwave is the delta wave, which is 0 to 4 cycles per second. So basically your brain activity is almost like a flat line, right? So that's when you're in a deep sleep. When you have that sleep that you don't remember your dreams, you go to sleep now and you wake up like an instant later, but it's been 8 hours. That's the delta wave sleep. And then from 4 to 7 cycles per second is the theta brainwave. And the theta brainwave is basically the state that you go into when you're under hypnosis, right? So it's like that hypnotic state, that semi-conscious state. And then we have from 7 to 14 cycles per second is the alpha state. And the alpha state is a state that you go into when you're doing like a meditation. So if you're visualizing yourself walking along a beach, so you close your eyes, you're able to get that image in your mind. That's the alpha state. And then from 14 to 28 cycles per second is the beta state. And that's the state when you're alert, you're talking, you're interacting with other people. And then from 28 to about 5,000, Vienna says, is the gamma state. And the gamma state is that state that you go into when you see time slow down. So a lot of people, if they're in an accident or something, it's like they watch it happening in front of them in slow motion. That's the gamma brainwave. So basically, it's really important to understand that you on a daily basis are going in and out of all of these brainwaves, right? It's not sometimes you do. Every day of your life, you're constantly going in and out of these brainwaves, right? So if you have somebody ring you and before you pick up the phone, you know who's on the other end. You've accessed that through a delta brainwave, right? So you're in that delta brain state where you're able to recognize exactly who is there on that other end. Anything that you've ever manifested in your life. So if you've woken up in the morning and thought, I'm going to have a crappy day today, and you do, you've done that through a theta state. If you've manifested that parking space out the front, if you've manifested to win the lotto, whatever it may be, anything that you've ever manifested is done through a theta brainwave, because from a scientific perspective, the theta brainwave is the same frequency as the energy of our bodies and of everything around us. So it's basically the energy of creation. If we access that energy of creation, that's where we're able to change our subconscious belief systems. The next state is the alpha state. And if you've been driving your car, you go through 3 or 4 sets of lights, and all of a sudden it's like, hang on, were they green? You've done that through an alpha state. The beta state is when you're interacting with other people, you're talking to people, and the gamma state is when time slows down. So what's really important to understand is we're going in and out of these brainwaves all day long. But here's the key. From 0 to 2 years old, you're actually in a delta brainwave. And then from 2 to 6 years old, you're in a theta brainwave. So the first 6 years of our lives is when the majority of the core level belief systems are formed. But we're actually in a semi-conscious state. And that's why they say that children are like sponges. They just take everything in. Because they're in that semi-conscious state. And that's where a lot of our belief systems are formed. That's why I mentioned earlier, a lot of your money issues will relate back to what you picked up from your environment in that first 6 years. So whether it's health, whether it's relationships, whether it's finances, if you look at health, there's a lot of people that get sick all the time. And the reason why they get sick all the time is because the only time they ever felt loved was when they got sick and their parents would take them to the doctors, or their parents would tuck them into bed, or, make them some hot soup, or, make them a cup of tea. Their parents had time for them when they were sick. If they weren't sick, the parents were too busy. And that's what happens for a lot of people. So on an unconscious level, it's like, okay, well, if I need a bit of love, I'll get sick. That sort of thing is really common, but there's even that perception, and Bruce Lipton even says it, a lot of people, they get sick as soon as they get in the car and they're driving on the way to the doctors, they start to get better, they start to feel better. Another really cool book that I like is called Mind Over Medicine by Dr. Lisa Rankin. She was actually a medical doctor, and she's gone through and she's studied the placebo and all that sort of stuff, and even the nocebo. And the nocebo is really powerful. Like, if a doctor says to a person they've got 6 months to live, a lot of people, will live that out to the day, right? So, that sort of thing is really powerful. And this is a great book if you want to learn more about that side of things. But it's really important to understand that the first 6 years of your life is actually creating a lot of your unconscious beliefs. The next level that we look at is called the gene level. And the gene level, if we were to dissect the brain, you have your pineal gland. And inside your pineal gland is where your genetic belief systems are. Right. So if we look at the physical DNA from a scientific perspective, the gene level of beliefs is the morphogenetic field around the DNA. Right. So that is everything that you've taken on from your parents, from their parents. Vienna actually says that it goes back 7 generations. So 7 generations back, if you look at the last couple of generations, we've had world wars. We've had Great Depressions, not to mention the natural disasters that have taken place. There have been a lot of things that have happened to our ancestors, right? And if we look at from, a spiritual perspective, you had the witch have had ancestors because it was only back to the 1700s where you had the witch hunt days. But here's where it's interesting. Is the witch hunt days weren't just one generation, they haven't happened over 300 years. So it was a number of generations where that sort of thing took place. In America, even in the 1700s, they would actually throw people in water. And if the people floated, it meant that they were a witch, and they'd kill them in a lot of cases or put them in jail, right? So there's those sorts of belief systems that are there, and they can be on your genetic level. So Vienna tells us that beyond 7 generations, we have the history level. And there are, so intuitively, when we look at the history level, we're looking over the top of the person's shoulders. So the history level, there are 2 parts to it. You have past life beliefs. Now, I was brought up Catholic. I didn't believe in past lives at all. Until I came into Theta Healing and I started working with people. And I've seen a lot of people over the last 18 years. Every person that I have worked with has had some sort of past life memory or trauma that needed to be resolved. Now, from an engineering perspective, if I was to look at it, I would think that, okay, well, from a science perspective, if all energy is made up of the same thing, if we are made up of that one energy of creation, then I have access to infinite intelligence. So if I have access to infinite intelligence, then I have access to everything that's ever happened in history. And so if I have, let's say, a support issue with my partner, if I have a support issue with my partner that I'm ready to heal right now, and the best way for me to heal that issue is to see myself in ancient Rome being thrown to the lions, then so be it. On the other hand, we could have lived those past lives. Either way, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is that you're healing those issues and you're allowing yourself to move forward. Because that's what it's all really about today. It's about, okay, this is where my life is at today. How can I improve it? How can I be the best version of me? And that's really all we're looking to do. At the end of the day, that's the key. How can I be the best version of me? So the second part of the history level is really powerful. It is group consciousness. Now, group consciousness can really affect you in negative ways. If you look at, the most recent example, if we've got, the COVID situation, right? There was a massive group consciousness around toilet paper and hand sanitizer saving your life, right? So if you got COVID, it didn't matter as long as you had enough toilet paper and enough hand sanitizer, you'd be okay. But That was the fear that was created. There was a group consciousness. So everybody went out there and bought toilet paper and hand sanitizer. And all of a sudden there was this shortage. There was this group consciousness. If you look back a bit further, 2008, we had the global financial crisis. It's a global financial crisis. Global. It's not just, one part of the world. So if there's a global financial crisis, a lot of businesses went bankrupt at that time. But why didn't all of them go bankrupt if it's a global financial crisis? And the reason why is because they were not tied into that group consciousness. It's the same with COVID. A lot of people struggled financially. A lot of people, it was really horrendous for them. It was so difficult. But then other people were having the most successful days ever. I've heard recently people were saying, we wish we go back to the lockdowns. It was so good back then. Their life was so much better. They were more abundant. It's consciousness. It's group consciousness. So here's another example. If you look at your family, maybe you're the black sheep of the family. Maybe you're the golden child. Maybe you're the one who always gets sick. Maybe you're the one who everybody relies on. It's like if there's something that needs to be done, we can rely on you to do it. Maybe there is a health condition in the family. You better be careful. You shouldn't eat that. We've got this in the family. That's group consciousness, right? If it was in everybody's genetics in that family line, everybody would get it. But why doesn't everybody in that family line get it? And the reason why is because their belief systems don't support them having it. If their belief systems support them having it, then that gene is going to express itself. If they don't, then that gene is going to stay dormant. If you look at Bruce Lipton, he talks about genetic health conditions. He says of all the people that have a genetic health condition, so genetic health condition means you're basically born with it. He says of all the people that had a genetic condition, less than 4% of those people were actually born with it. So that means that the majority of genetic conditions have been developed throughout our lifetimes. So we are victims to our environment. No, sorry, not victims to our environment, victims to our perception of our environment. If we victimize ourselves, if we believe that that's going to be our truth, then that's what we will experience. But any scientist will tell you that anything that can be created can be discreated. And that's what's really important here. If we can create it, then we can discreate it. And so group conscious can be a really powerful energy that can actually block you from moving forward. So, if you look at health conditions like type 1 diabetes, there's a consensus in the medical profession that it's medically incurable, right? Type 1 diabetes, they say, is medically incurable. I guarantee you, if you look hard enough, you'll be able to find plenty of people that have actually healed from it. But that is a group consciousness, right? It is really important to be aware that group consciousness can actually hold you back, right? Even as far as your family is concerned. So if you look at today's society, we like to consider ourselves as an equal society, right? But it wasn't that long ago, there was class systems in all countries. You still have those class systems in some countries today. And you weren't allowed to move beyond your class in society. You weren't allowed to marry beyond your class in society. We can still be carrying those belief systems unconsciously because our ancestors had those. Or maybe we had those belief systems in a past life. So there can be a lot of things that are unconsciously holding you back. And when you're able to recognize what they are and you're able to change those things, then all of a sudden you become empowered in your life. And that's what this work is all about. It's all about you knowing that you don't need anybody or anything outside of you to change your life. That's what this is really about. Right? So if we look at the soul level, that's the fourth level. And basically, the soul level is everything that we've taken with us through our soul through all lifetimes. So the best aspects of ourselves, but it's also where we store all like the really deep trauma, like, you know, the death of a loved one, relationship breakups, all those sorts of things are stored there on the soul level. So basically what happens is there are 4 levels where we store our belief systems. And in theta healing, what we do is we actually change those belief systems all at once, right? So remember the core level, I spoke about how it's the majority of it is formed in our lifetime. So it's everything from conception through to now. So let's say we have a belief system, I am sad. And let's say that belief system is on the core level, it's on the gene level, and it's on the history level. So what happens is I can go through and I can affirm to myself that I am happy. And through repetition, so remember, through repetition, the conscious can impress on the subconscious. So I go through and I'm affirming to myself, I am happy. So what happens now is I change the belief on the core level of I am sad, and I create the belief system, I am happy. But on a gene level and on a history level, I'm still sad. So what's going to happen is this one's just going to recreate itself. And that's why oftentimes people will go for a healing or you know, do some work on themselves and it changes for a little while and then it sort of comes back. That's because it hasn't been changed on all the levels. If it's still on a couple of other levels, it can actually resurface. And so that's where it's really important to change the belief on all 4 levels. So when we change the belief on all 4 levels, we're actually getting a more profound change. Okay. Here's how it works. We may have a belief system. So let's say we have the belief system, I am sad, but that is just an energy. If I don't have sad experiences, then that belief system is not going to be really strong. Right? But let's say, you know, I go to primary school and my parents drop me off and I feel like they've abandoned me. So I'm sad, right? So primary school, and then we go to the park with our friends and our friends don't let us go on the swing. So we're really sad. And then we fall off our bike and we're really sad. And then we're at primary school and one of the other kids eats our lunch. And we're really sad. And then we have all these other experiences. So all of a sudden now, this belief of I am sad has actually got a lot of foundation. And so it's actually really strong. And so when we talked about neural pathways, the more that neural pathway gets used, the stronger it becomes. And so that's what's actually happened through repetition of sad experiences. We're strengthening that neural pathway. So here's how feelings work. So let's say this is a cell inside our bodies. And all of us have trillions of cells. Everything outside of this cell is the environment. So let's say this is sadness. This is love. and this is happiness. So in this environment, there is love, sadness, and happiness. But this person only has the receptor open for sadness. So it doesn't matter how much love you give them, it's just bouncing off. The only receptor they've got open is the one for sadness. So life is very difficult for this person. So what we do is we teach this person what love feels like. So we open a new receptor. We teach this person what happiness feels like. We open a new receptor. So all of a sudden now, this person's life is very different. There is love, there is sadness, and there is happiness. But the environment has not changed at all. Their life is a lot better, but the environment has not changed. It's our perception of the environment that has changed now. And that's what we're allowing ourselves to experience. When we're changing our perception, we allow ourselves to have a new experience. And we've all had this before. You know, if I tell you tonight, keep an eye out for yellow cars, you may not have seen a yellow car in ages, but all of a sudden now you're going to start noticing yellow cars. Or if you've bought yourself a new car, nobody had those cars, but all of a sudden now that you've got one, they're everywhere. Because what's happened is you've brought that into your zone of perception. You've brought that into your reality, your focus. And so all of a sudden you're experiencing more of that. The other thing that we do here is we teach this person how to live without sadness. And what that does is closes off that receptor. But what's important to understand here is we're not turning off the ability to experience sadness. Because sadness is normal. If somebody close to you passes away, of course you're going to be sad. Right? There's a lot of things that happen in life that are sad. So we don't want to shut off that ability to be sad. It's just we're not sending the message out there saying, hey, bring it to me. Right? That's the difference. So what's really important to understand is that everything that you currently lack in your life, so whether it's relationships, whether it's finances, whatever it may be, whatever is lacking for you right now, it is already there in the environment. It is in abundance in the environment. All you need to do is to open up your ability to receive it. And that's one of the key things in life, receiving, right? But that's one of the things that people have the biggest blocks in life too, because we've all got people in our lives that have given us something. And then for the next 30 years, they make you feel like you are forever in debt to them. So all of a sudden, it's like, you know what, if that's the cost of receiving, I'd rather not get it. And so we actually block things. But if you look at your parents as well, if you're a good boy or good girl, you'll get this. Everything's conditional, right? So if receiving is conditional, then we're going to have resistance to it. But if we truly desire to experience the things that are really important to us, then we have to be a great receiver. And so that's a really important aspect to heal. It all goes in together. So you see how our feelings affect our belief systems, right? So what happens here, if we're using the original example, right? So let's say we're downloading the belief, I am happy. So what happens is we teach this person how to live without sadness. And then what we do is pull the sadness from going to preschool, right? And so what happens is we do a healing on that memory. We teach them how to live without that sadness, and they realize that, hang on, that first day I went to preschool, yeah, I was crying, But that's where I met Billy, who's my best friend, and we've been friends ever since that day. Right. So it was the best day of my life. Right. So what happens is we start to see that, okay, yes, that was negative, but there was a positive experience in here that we were happy with. And then
Swing.
the swing, thank you. Yeah. So then we find our friend didn't let us go on the swing. And the reason why they didn't let us go on the swing is because it was about to break. And we would have hurt ourselves. So we went on the seesaw together. Right. So we were able to see beyond like that negative experience and see what followed. And it was a positive. And, falling off the bike, right? Our parents went and bought us a brand new bike after that. The kid ate our lunch. We actually swapped lunch with them and we got the better deal, right? Their lunch was better than ours. So we were happy with swapping that lunch. Once we change our focus, then all of a sudden we allow ourselves to see all the positive. It's just like I felt unsupported. And when I recognized that I had that belief system that I was unsupported, all of a sudden I was able to see all the support that was in my life. And that's what it comes down to. It's changing our perspectives. And that's what changing our belief systems and downloading feelings actually allows us to do. It allows us to change our perspective. And when we change our perspective of our environment, then we're actually changing the environment that our body is experiencing. And we can actually allow a healthy environment for us to experience the change that we desire. Right. You've all heard of people that have, won lotteries or, their business all of a sudden, just one day, everything changes and things take off and things begin to snowball for them from that day onwards. It's that one little catalyst that you're looking at, one little bit of change that all of a sudden opens a door for you and you can experience whatever you desire. Everything is possible for you because if you are one with all that is, if that is true, right? And quantum physics says that it's true. If we are one with the energy of creation, if we are one energy with the universe, and the universe is infinitely abundant, then you are one with infinite abundance. So your natural state is infinite abundance. Any lack that you are experiencing is a man-made concept. It's not coming from our essence because our essence is infinitely abundant. So if we can shift that mindset, if we can allow ourselves to recognize the abundance that is there in the environment, then all of a sudden we can experience anything that we desire. And everything is possible for all of us. I truly believe that. It doesn't matter what it is in your life. Whatever areas you feel there is lack, whatever areas you feel overwhelmed with, everything is possible to change. Right? But what happens in our society today is we're constantly in a stress state. There's always stress, like, the cost of living today. Traditionally, the man would go out and make the money. The woman would stay home and nurture the household. In today's society, with the price of mortgages, with the price of living, it's very difficult to have a couple doing that. So what's happening is the woman's going to work as well. And we're just talking like conventional relationships. You've got one partner who's going out and they're both having to work. So if my wife is having to work, on a subconscious level, I'm feeling I'm not good enough as a man because I'm not providing for the family. My wife's having to work, so she's having less time nurturing the family. So she's thinking, I'm neglecting my children, I'm neglecting my family. Can you see why so many people get sick today? We're constantly stressed. We leave home, we're rushing, we're sitting in traffic. There's so much traffic. You get to the office, all of a sudden, like you're under the pump. There's so much stress and so much pressure that you're under. Come back home. You're in the traffic again. It's stressful. You get back home. There's always something happening. There's always some sort of drama going on. Like if you got a partner and you got children, yeah. My definition of enlightenment is get married, have kids, and stay calm. Right? There's always something going on. And then all of a sudden, we're meant to be able to go to sleep and just forget about everything. And that's why so many people have sleep issues today. Their mind is so busy. Their mind's constantly active that they're not able to shut down. They're not able to relax. And your body needs to be in that relaxed state in order to heal itself. Right? It is so important. So what's happening is our society is taking us out of the natural state. If we're constantly in that stress state, and on top of that, I'm not feeling worthy because my wife has to go out and work. I'm not providing as a man. All of a sudden, it all just snowballs. And that's why there's so many health conditions today. So many people have got so many things happening. It's important to allow ourselves to de-stress and allow ourselves to get focused on what's really important. So when you know what's really important to you and you have faith that it's yours and you take action towards achieving it, right? Because if you're just going to sit here and manifest it, send it out there and then just go home, watch Foxtel and wait for it to happen, it's not going to happen. Without action, nothing happens. Action enables reception. It's going to take effort on your part. But anything that is worth doing is worth putting into action. And you'll find that if it's something that you're passionate about, if it's something that you love, then that action is effortless. Right? They say that, you know, when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And that is so true. And it's really important to see. So what we're going to do now is give you a little bit of a taste of how it actually works. So one technique that I'll quickly just demonstrate myself to you. It's just a tool that you can use for yourself. It's called muscle testing. So muscle testing is a part of kinesiology. In Theta Healing, we don't actually teach kinesiology, but we teach you a couple of really basic ways that you can actually muscle test, right? So what we do is you can use your body as a pendulum. So what I'm doing is identifying a stress for my body. So if I say yes, and what Vianna says is to close your eyes, and then you just say yes, and you'll see my body moves forward. If I say no, my body moves backwards, right? So now I can test what my subconscious believes, right? So, for example, you know, I am worthy and deserving of receiving love, right? So that's a yes. So what I'm doing is testing for what my subconscious believes. And that's what's really important to identify here, because on the conscious level, we may think everything's great and we're on top of our game, but on a subconscious level, if we're not experiencing what we actually desire, then our subconscious is the one who's pushing those rules out into the universe. And they're the ones that are the cause, and we're experiencing the effect from. So when we're able to identify what those unconscious beliefs are, and then we're able to use our Theta Healing tools to change those beliefs, then all of a sudden we can create a new reality for ourselves, right? And the reason why we know that we're actually able to access the theta brainwave is when Vianna was born very psychic, right? So she had like this intuitive ability, and she was doing readings for people, like future readings for people. That's what she used to do. So she grew up, or she lived in a little country town called Idaho Falls in America. And She got really sick and then she healed herself. And with the help of her doctor, what they did was try to identify what actually happened when she healed herself. And so what they did was hooked her up to an EEG machine, electroencephalograph machine. And what they found when she did her meditation and she went up into her meditative state, on the EEG machine, it showed that she was in a theta brainwave. So that was really cool, right? And then what they did was they started, because she was good friends with her doctor, right? So they started doing some more tests to identify what was happening. And what they found was they hooked up Vienna to the EEG machine and they got somebody in to be a client. And what they did was they hooked them up to the EEG machine as well. And so when Vienna went up into her meditative state and she was connecting to a theta brainwave, what happened was this client actually went up into a theta brainwave as well. So when she went up into a theta brainwave, it automatically took the client up into a theta brainwave, right? So then with theta healing, what we do is we command or request to make that change. So changing the belief or teaching the feeling, whatever it may be. And then our role is to witness. And that's where we use our intuition. We witness that change taking place in that other person. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to talk you up into a theta brainwave. So it's going to be like a visualization. So you're going to see yourself going up through all these white lights, and then there's a golden light, then there's a jelly-like substance, and then you get up into a tingly white light. So if you're anything like me, first time I did this, actually first number of times I did this, I couldn't see the white light. So like, people are there, like, going up into a theta state. I'm sitting there thinking, I can't see the white lights. Just allow your intention to get you there, right? Just have the intention that you're going to access that state. Even if you don't feel it, just relax. If one person gets up, we'll all get up there, right? So don't focus on, if you can't see the white lights, because I know for me it was a major stress. When I first started doing this work, I was about as intuitive as a door. And, it was a major struggle for me, like the whole intuition thing. Whereas today, it's like a muscle. The more you practice it, the stronger it gets. So once we get up into a theta state, then I'm going to state some beliefs or feelings. And if you're happy to receive it, then you can say yes to yourself and you can receive that healing. Right? So you're ready to play? But before we do that, I'd like you to think of 5 things that you would like to manifest in the next 12 months. What are 5 things that you would like to achieve? Financially, maybe you'd like to pay off your credit card. Maybe you'd like to, have a deposit for a house, or maybe you'd like to buy yourself a new car. Maybe you'd like to pay off your house. What is it that you would like to achieve in the next 12 months financially? Relationships. If you're in a relationship, what would you like to improve about your relationship? How would you like your relationship to be? How would you like your partner to treat you? How would you like your communication with your partner to be? If you've got children, how would you like your relationship with your children to be? People at work, how would you like your relationship with them to be? How would you like them to treat you? How would you like them to see you? So think of at least 5 things that you would like to achieve in the next 12 months, right? And one of the most important areas that you can look at is how you give back to the community. What difference can you make in other people's lives? right? It could be donating time, it could be donating money, whatever it is, anything that you do to give back is really important. Right? There are so many people out there that need help today. Whether it's, mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever it is, there's a lot of people that, are going through really hard times today. And any help that you can offer other people is just really priceless. It's important. So that's a real key area that you should be including in your manifestation as well. What difference can you make in other people's lives? So even if it's buying, a homeless person a coffee and, some lunch or something like that, right? Las Vegas is the best place to go for beggars because they're like really honest. Yeah, so you go to Las Vegas, you see like they've got a number of cups in front of them. So the first cup is for food, the second cup is for alcohol, the third cup is for drugs, the fourth cup is for gambling, and the fifth cup is for prostitutes, and you can choose which one you want to put the money into. I'm only in Vegas. So you ready to play? Cool. So first thing we're going to do is we'll talk you up into a theta state. And the first exercise we'll do is send you an unconditional love, right? So what it is you're just going to feel unconditional love come through your body. You may see something, you may feel something, you may feel it tingling through your body. You may not feel anything at all, but just allow yourself to relax and see what happens. So we'll do that unconditional love first. We'll send it to you. We'll send it to your family. We'll send it to all the people around the world that are going through, the wars and natural disasters and stuff like that. I've had a few people with prayer requests as well, so we'll include that in there as well. And then I'm going to go through some downloads, and they're the ones, if you're happy, it'll be things like, know what it feels like to receive unconditional love. I'm worthy of receiving unconditional love, that sort of thing. So if you're happy to receive those, then you can just say yes to yourself. And then once we've done that, I'll talk you through the manifestation. Okay, so close your eyes, take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, allow yourself to see energy coming up through your feet, coming up through your body, and coming up out of the top of your head as a beautiful ball of light. See yourself in that ball of light. Take a moment to notice what color it is. What does it feel like? And then see yourself in that ball of light moving straight up, going up past the universe. And then you'll come up into a white light and another and another. In fact, there are many white lights. Keep going. And then you'll come up into a golden light. And maybe a familiar energy. But as you go through that golden light, you'll come up into a thick, watery-like substance, almost like jelly. You may see all the colors of the rainbow. You may see different shapes. And just up ahead of you, you'll see a sparkly white light in the shape of a rectangle, like a window. Head for that light. It's a tingly white light. You may feel it tingling through your body. Allow yourself to go deeper into that energy, to that tingly white light. Feel every cell in your body one with that pure unconditional love. Okay, and now you can repeat after me, but do it in silence. So repeat it to yourself. Creator, it is requested to fill every cell of my body, my family, everybody in this workshop, their families, and anybody that we're aware of that can do with some healing at this time, especially all the people involved in the wars around the world and any people experiencing natural disasters. Fill every cell of our bodies with unconditional love. Thank you. It is done. It is done. It is done. And now allow yourself to witness that unconditional love coming in through every cell in your body. And everybody that we mention. So be aware that you cannot force anybody to take it. If it's their free will and choice, then they will receive it. Okay, and now take your awareness back up into that tingly white light. Okay, and can we teach you what unconditional love feels like? And that you know how to receive, accept, and keep unconditional love. And that you know how to, and that it's safe to receive a healing from a man or a woman. And that you know what it feels like to love yourself. And that you know how to love yourself. And that you are worthy and deserving of self-love. And that you know how to allow yourself to be loved by your partner. That you're worthy and deserving of being loved by a partner. And that you know how to be in a relationship where you love each other. And that you know how to be loved, supported, and nurtured in a relationship. And that you know the difference between your energy and your partner's energy. and that you know the difference between your energy, your beliefs, and thoughts, and those of other people. And that you know how to live without taking on other people's energy, thoughts, or beliefs. And that you know what it feels like to be abundant. And that it's possible for you to be financially abundant. And that it's possible for you to have a healthy relationship with money. And that you know how to be comfortable with money. And that you trust yourself to manage your money wisely. And that you know how to save your money easily. And that you are comfortable watching your savings grow. And let's teach you how to recognize good opportunities when they present themselves to you. That you know how to recognize wise investment opportunities. And that you know how to invest your money wisely. And can we teach you what it feels like to be happy? That it's safe and possible for you to be happy. And that you deserve to be successful. And that you allow yourself to achieve success. And that you know how to heal your past without reliving the trauma. And that you know how to release the emotional attachment to the past so you can move forward. And that you know how to move forward in positive ways in your life. And that you know how to be the best version of yourself in every moment. And that you know what it feels like to be healthy. And it's safe and possible for you to be healthy. And that you know how to live without pain. And that you know how to live without punishing yourself. And that you allow your goodness to shine. And that you know how to recognize your intuition. And you know how to trust your intuition. And you know how to use your intuition in positive ways. And that you are comfortable using your intuition. And also that you allow yourself to be recognized and appreciated for the work you do. And that you allow others to recognize and appreciate you for the work that you do. Let's teach you what it feels like to respect and appreciate yourself. Okay. So just allow yourself to take in all those healings through every cell in your body. Okay, so we'll do our manifestation now. So be aware of what you would like to manifest. Okay, so now take your awareness back up into that tingly white light. Just allow yourself to instantly be there. Feel every cell in your body one with that pure unconditional love energy. So now we make the command. Creator, it is requested that I have this, and state what it is that you would like to manifest. In my life right now. Thank you. It is done. It is done. It is done. And now allow yourself to witness yourself having all those manifestations right now. Allow yourself to visualize. If you're not a visual person, allow yourself to feel that you already have them. Or even just get the sense that it's already yours. Allow yourself to know that you're worthy and deserving, having your manifestation, and that it's safe and possible for you to have it. And that you know who you are with your manifestation. Okay, and now take your awareness back up into that tingly white light. Take a deep breath in and open your eyes. Was that cool? Okay, so what's next from here is we do have a workshop coming up in October. So in 2 weeks. It is a 3-day workshop and it will teach you all the tools that we've gone through tonight. So it's about learning how to change a belief, how to teach a feeling. And really, it's a process of understanding which beliefs to change or which feelings to actually teach. So it's not just about like knowing how to change a belief and teach a feeling. It's about a process of being able to recognize which ones to actually change. And so what it is you're actually learning the tools to be able to help yourself. And that's what is the key for this. Like that was the biggest thing for me because like over like all those years after my introduction to spirituality where, you know, I knew there was something in this, but there was always that something missing. And for me, it was like the simplicity. It's like, like if it is true that we are one with that energy of creation, then making change in our lives has to be simple. It cannot be a difficult process. If that's the truth, then it has to be simple. And that's what I've found with this technique. It's actually simple, like changing the belief, teaching the feelings. It is so simple. And it's just about identifying the right beliefs, which beliefs are holding whatever's there in place. And that's what we do in the basic class. We go through and teach you how the technique works and how you can use it in your life. Because when you are empowered, when you know that you have everything that you need to heal yourself, then you're standing in your true power, because your body does heal itself. Your body is amazing. Go to the medical industry. If somebody's in a car accident, for example, they go to emergency. The doctors are amazing. They stabilize the body. So they get the person's body in a stable condition. And then from there, they just monitor it and allow the body to heal itself. The body is incredible. Your body does heal itself. You just got to give it that right environment. And that's what this is all about. It's about shifting our mindset, understanding why we've created certain things in our lives and why our life is the way it is, and being able to change that. Because as long as we feel like we're victims to whatever's happening in our lives, then nothing's going to change. If anything, things are just going to get worse. And so this is really powerful. It's a 3-day class. So we go through, we do a number of exercises like that will help you with your intuition as well. Doing things like future readings, doing things like angel readings. So they're a lot of fun and they help you to identify your intuition. We practice doing healings on each other. So you actually go through and do healings on another person. Like once you've learned the technique and you've seen demonstrations and stuff. So it's a really cool class. It's amazing. So as a special offer for the first people who sign up, what we're offering is a group coaching session with me. So it'll be one of the evenings after class. So what it is you can tell me what's happening in your life and I'll tune in intuitively, tell you what's there and we'll do some healing around it as well, like in a group setting. So the first 5 people who sign up will be part of that. The other thing that we're offering, the class is $6.95. So if you register tonight, we can take $50 off the price. We can also do payment plans as well. So, we're happy to help out and you can pay it off over a few months or anything like that. We don't charge interest or anything like that. That's another thing. The other thing too, if you sign up tonight, then you'll get a copy of my MP3. It's called Manifesting with the Chakras. So it's actually a meditation and it's a manifestation as well. So it's actually really cool. It's a really powerful one. I've had a lot of people give me amazing feedback on that as well. And anything you want to add, Teresa?
No, that's everything. You've added all of that needed to be added, and we certainly welcome the opportunity for anyone to register for this amazing 3-day workshop. The class is offered both online and in person in Sydney. So if you want to do it at home in the comfort of your own home, we've done it many times. We've been running it like that since COVID. And also we have people that now come into the centre. So if you wish to do it in person, you can do it that way as well. And in some cases, we've had people do it both in person and online over the 3 days. So they might do it online on the Friday and then come in on the Saturday and the Sunday. So online, it's equally effective as it is in person. So yeah, does anyone have any questions? Awesome.
Cool. So thank you all for allowing us to share our experience with you. This is really powerful stuff that has changed our lives. And I know it can change your life too. We've had amazing experiences. So many people have taken these classes with us over the years and they've made incredible transformations in their lives. So thank you again for your time and I look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks. Thank you.
2 weeks.
Thank you. Okay. So there's